A massive legal showdown just came to an end. We're talking about a fierce debate over presidential power, the economy, and what even counts as a national emergency. And now the Supreme Court has had the final say. Okay, let's dive right into what this landmark decision really means.
So here's the headline. The Supreme Court just struck down President Trump's sweeping tariffs. And it wasn't even close. It was a decisive 6-3 vote, which is a huge blow to the administration.
And you know, that 6-3 number is what makes this so incredibly interesting. We're talking about a court with a conservative majority, which makes this a really rare and significant defeat for the administration at the highest court in the land.
So how on earth did the court get to this decision? Let's back up a little and trace the legal journey that brought us to this moment.
You know, this wasn't some overnight thing. This legal battle has been raging for months. It all kicked off back in April 2025, when the tariffs were first put in place. They were challenged almost immediately, and a lower court blocked them. Then, an appeals court agreed they were illegal, which, of course, set the stage for this final showdown at the Supreme Court.
And the entire legal fight really boiled down to one specific, kind of obscure law, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977. You'll hear it called IEEPA.
So you can almost think of IEEPA as an emergency toolkit for the president. It was designed way back when to give the White House some flexibility to handle unusual and extraordinary threats. It lets the president regulate importation after declaring a national emergency.
And this, right here, is where the whole case pivots. It all comes down to a single, crucial distinction. The court majority basically said that regulating importation, like blocking a specific shipment or setting a quota, is fundamentally different from imposing tariffs, which are just a broad tax. It's kind of like the difference between a cop directing traffic versus putting a toll booth on every single road. One manages the flow, the other just collects money.
Chief Justice Roberts, who wrote the majority opinion, put it this way: the power to tax belongs to Congress. That's right there in the Constitution. So if the president wants to use a power that big, the law better be crystal clear about it. And the court found that EEPA, well, it just wasn't clear enough.
But, and this is a big but, this was not a unanimous decision. The justices who disagreed, in an opinion written by Justice Kavanaugh, argued the complete opposite. They said the president was acting within his legal authority. They looked at history and past cases and said, hey, the power to regulate trade has pretty much always included the power to slap on tariffs. They argued the majority was just inventing a distinction that wasn't there before.
Okay, so let's get practical. What does this actually mean for the tariffs that are out there right now? It's really important to get this straight. This ruling doesn't get rid of all of the administration's tariffs.
So the ruling specifically overturns those big, broad, reciprocal tariffs that were imposed using IEEPA. We're talking about the 34% tariff on China and that 10% baseline on most other countries. But things like the steel and aluminum tariffs, they're still in place. Why? Because they were imposed using a totally different law.
All right, let's follow the money, because the financial scale of this decision is, well, it's just staggering. We're talking about billions of dollars that have already been collected and trillions more in projected economic damage.
Get this, $133 billion. That's how much money businesses have already paid to the government because of these tariffs. And now the legality of all of it is in question.
But if you thought that was a big number, wait till you hear this. The long-term impact is even wilder. The Congressional Budget Office had projected that these specific tariffs would cost the U.S. economy $3 trillion over the next decade. And with this ruling, that projected cost has just been wiped off the books.
So, the ruling is in, but this is far from over. In fact, this decision opens up a whole new can of worms and leaves some massive questions just hanging in the air.
First up, and this is the big one for a lot of companies, what happens to that $133 billion that's already been collected? The court didn't say if businesses are going to get refunds. We also have no idea how the president is going to respond. And this all leads to a much bigger question about the future of presidential power. What does this mean for how the White House can react to the next economic crisis?
And that's really the fundamental question this whole case leaves us with. When there's a perceived economic crisis, who should be in the driver's seat? Should it be the president who can act fast, or should it be Congress, which has the constitutional authority over taxes and trade? This ruling has definitely drawn a new line in the sand, but believe me, the debate over that balance of power is far from over.